Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again, I'm Martin Ballard and welcome to episode 63 of this podcast series. And with just over a month to the start of rehearsals, we chat to an actor, director and children's TV and panto favourite.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
In the last episode, I was joined by a team of technical creatives, Imagine's Eric Potts and Dave Edmonds, as well as Nina Dunn, the creative director and lead designer at Pixel Lux, to discuss how technology continues to help with the evolution of pantomime. Now, don't forget, if you missed that or any of the other previous episodes, you can still listen to them. We've had some fabulous guests from the Imagine Theatre headquarters team to performers and backstage teams at the various Imagine shows. We've talked about how pantomime is produced, its history and its future. And of course, there are many more episodes to come from one of the UK's biggest producers of pantomime and children's theatre. Well, this time I've been joined by the Scottish actor, singer and director Andrew Agnew. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to meet you, because when you've worked for Imagine for a number of years, you hear about all these other people working in all the other theatres across the UK. And of course, you very rarely get to meet, do you?
You don't, particularly if you do the same job. If you do, and if you do a dame or whatever, you don't tend to meet other dames because you're just not there. So no, it's been lovely.
Tell us a bit about you and where the performance and theatre bug began. Was it school shows?
It was school shows, yeah. I think the first thing I did was I played the Munchkin Mayor in The Wizard of Oz. When I'm 6'2" now, so you can't really imagine the fact that I was ever a munchkin. But I was, and it was great. At school, I think I was in third year, and we did really good school shows. We were very lucky. The teachers really, all the departments, so the art department did the set, the woodwork department built this massive, beautiful set, because it was an auditorium we were in, so there was no wing space or anything in our theatre. So they built it all for us, and then the art department would get on it and do their magic. And then we had our PE teachers would do choreography for us, and actually a French teacher did the costume. I don't know how that worked out, but that's what happened. But the whole school got involved, and of course as soon as I found out there was a school show, you couldn't join it until you were in third year. First and second year you couldn't do it, although the year of Wizard of Oz, they were obviously the Munchkins, but they couldn't be principals. So I was the Munchkin Mayor, and I remember making my own top hat, and it was like a massive big purple hat thing that I had to make with a big buckle on the front. I went to town with it. It was great.
So what inspired you to want to perform? And do you remember going to see panto as a kid?
I did. I remember when I was very young, my gran took me to, I was born in Paisley, brought up in Elderslie, and I went to Castlehead High School in Paisley. Paisley Town Hall used to do a pantomime there. Pace is still there. There's a kids group called Pace, Paisley Arts Centre, and they're still there. But before they kind of existed, or just before they existed, they used to do pantos in the town hall. And Jack and the Beanstalk, which I'm appearing in this year, was the panto I went to see. And I remember sitting in the kind of grand circle area just above the aisle, and I remember looking over and down, and the giant walked underneath me down the front aisle and on towards the stage. And I remember I literally could touch this person's head. It was so close, and I felt like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was just, the panto was great, but that's a memory. I must have been very, very young, a toddler kind of young, because it's only distant memories that I have of it. But that's where my kind of love of any sort of performance was, because I always sang. My family were always Beatles fans, so we knew every words to the Beatles songs. And I would be singing. I would sing Mulla Kintyre in the bath when I was 2. Apparently I knew all the words. So I think it was inevitable that as I grew up, I was going to be some sort of performer.
So were you ever tempted to audition for a junior ensemble?
Not necessarily. I did audition to be in the Paisley Abbey choir, which my brother was in. He was in it. He got in. I didn't get in. But I remember going for that audition and trying to kind of get in to do that. But as far as being young in shows, I think there was nothing really about Pace that I mentioned came a wee bit later. I kind of missed the boat a bit with Pace. I was a wee bit too old for Pace. But again, my brother was in it.
So what happened between the school shows and becoming a professional actor and things like Colin the Chef and PC Plum and so on?
Well, that was amateur theatre, really. That's the same as everything. We had a teacher, a chemistry teacher in our school called Finlay Waters, and he was the director of a Johnson Phoenix Theatre Group, which I'm the patron of now, and I've directed for them in the past and been principal for them, been in the chorus for them as well. Over 31 years I think I've been involved with the club, but that was my first introduction to theatre. So I would go in, auditioned at 15 years old, I think I was, when Mr. Waters told me to kind of come along, and I sang Leaning on a Lamppost. I remember singing the song, and of course I was a guy, so I was going to get in. You know, anything with amateur theatre, if you're a guy and you're good enough and you can face the right direction, you're going to get in. So I did Cinderella, the panto, for my first show, and I was only 15, but I was going to be 16 by the time the show would go on, so it was all legal. So it was that, and then I went through lots of different shows and musicals, and with different companies as well. I played Jesus and Godspell, Tony and the Boyfriend, Tommy Keeler and Annie Get Your Gun. Oh, lots of things. And then also college. I then went to drama college when I was 17, so I was quite early doing that as well. And having higher drama, I was lucky. I had a very good assistant head teacher that she was at the time, Mrs. Walker. She knew that I loved theatre, and she looked at the school shows, and our school didn't supply any sort of drama lessons or anything. We're talking a way back, you know. Not all schools then had drama departments, and a school locally had a drama department, and a very good one, and she organised with the other school for me then to get a taxi twice a week at lunchtime to the other school, and then spend the afternoon, a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon, and I did standard grade drama, higher drama, and then graduated from doing that and then going to drama college. So she really was a big part of me getting into drama college, because that was the foundation that I needed to go to college to then study to be an actor.
Colin the Chef, PC Plum, children's television, generally. How did that start?
Funnily enough, it didn't start with that. So when I graduated from drama college, I always wanted to be... we went on holiday when I was younger, we always went to Butlins and Ayr, Wonder West World or Butlins or whatever it was called at different times, red coats and all sorts. And I was a big Heidi High fan as well, but I always wanted to be a red coat. So when I came out of drama college, I kind of thought I still would quite fancy doing that. I was only 20 and I thought I could still maybe do a wee something here. And I got a job in Rothsay as a green coat in the Coast and Country hotels. Shearing coaches would go and all these people would turn up, and it was an adult kind of hotel. It was all kind of retired people would come, and we would do bingo and we'd play hoy, and we would have cabarets, and Margaret Zavaroni would sing, who was Lena Zavaroni's cousin. So we had lots of bands and magicians and all comedians would all come, and I was part of the resident entertainment team there for quite a while, and I loved it. It was great, and I got to do the ballroom dancing at night and everything in the nice big hotel. So that was something that really kind of satisfied that need to be a red coat. So then going from that, I went into children's theatre, TIE stuff, and going around gym halls doing the Vikings and pantomimes, taking pantos and stuff to kids who weren't getting to go to theatres, because not everybody can go to theatre, you know, at least not maybe back then, 20 odd years ago. So we would take it in and line the kids up, sit them down. They still do it, you know, line them in the gym hall, and then you would do a performance for them in the afternoon or the morning, and the kids would love it. So that's when I got the bug for kids entertainment and theatre, and that's when then I thought I need to start doing some stuff for kids TV.
And was that an audition, or were you spotted?
That was an audition for... It then became Balamory, but when I first was seen for that, it was called Applecross. That's the name of the programme then, and it was still in development as far as the BBC were concerned. So they were looking for 8 characters, and they had an idea of who the characters were going to be job-wise, maybe name-wise, but they didn't really have an awful lot of information of what they wanted. I think they were waiting to see who was going to come through the door. And they saw thousands of people, you know, loads of people. I was in 3 times or so for different reasons. The first time I was in was just to tell a story and sing a song. There was no characters involved at that point. It was just to see whether they liked you as a person. And then from that, they got me back in, and they'd sent me through some scenes. And by that point, in the first kind of casting part, they said to me, if you were to be a person in this show, would you be a bus driver, or would you be an inventor or a policeman? And I said, well, my dad used to be a policeman, and my uncle's very high up in the police, and my mum's uncle was a policeman, and I'm tall, so I think probably I would probably be a policeman. And then they said to me, do you drive? If it was the bus driver that you would maybe be considered for? And I said, I don't drive. I can drive now, but not then. I said, I don't. I said, but I can cycle. And I think it might be quite nice if the policeman had a little bike with a bell on it, and it would go tring tring and cycle around the island and thing. And they went, okay, that's a nice idea. So then I went back in. That was the second time I went back in, and they sent me through a script And in the script was the character PC Plum cycling on his bicycle into the nursery, falling through the door and crashing into the nursery and apologising to this character, Miss Hooley, who they now had, and the relationship between PC Plum and Miss Hooley. And that was the second casting. And then I got back again, and Julie Wilson-Nimmo, who played Miss Hooley, was there along with lots of other women, all lined up in chairs. And I went in and I auditioned as PC Plum with lots of different people. And then eventually Julie and I got to do it together, and we were like, right, come on, we'll go and sit in the corner and we'll kind of rehearse wee bits and do stuff. And we did. And then they got us in, and then they got us back in again. I noticed at that point, that the guys were kind of disappearing. I thought there's less and less of us here now. This is quite a good sign. You know, I was still quite young. What did I know about casting? You know, I just kind of thought, you know, this is the way the day happens, but I didn't know much about that. So then the day went on, and then I left and went home, and that very day, that night, I got a phone call from my agent then saying, and I went, hello, and she was like, hello, PC Plum. And I was like, oh my goodness. And the first thing I was like, who's Miss Hooley? And she was like, it was Julie Wilson-Nimmo. I was like, yes, because we spent so much time on that day together, so it was great.
I mean, it was a real phenomenon, wasn't it? Were you surprised by that? I mean, it's just over 20 years, I think, since it first aired, and its popularity was incredible.
It's phenomenal, and I think when we first started to film it, well, no, but even before we first started to film, when we recorded the songs, we all had our own character song, and as soon as I heard the character song and I heard other people's character songs, I was like, this is great. People are going to love this, because the music's so good. And everyone had done a good job of it, you know, they recorded it really well. And then we all went up to Mull, where we did all the exterior stuff, and it was pouring a rain for the fortnight we were there. And of course, everything was outside that we were filming. We were by the water, outside the houses, dancing. People that know the show will know what I'm talking about, but there's songs in it that we dance by the water and outside houses and everything. And we did that for 2 weeks, and lots of jackets and scarves, and without a jacket and with a jumper, and you know, you did it in so many different ways. And also walking in and out of houses, just all the generic shots of us going to visit lots of different people. So even after then, you're like, what in the name of the wee man are we filming? Because there was no stories, there was nothing. It was all just generic things that could get cut, like making a pop video. Just lots of wee things. And then obviously the editor would put it all together. And then we started filming some scenes, and at that point I thought, right, okay, this is going to be good. But the first time when I saw an episode, I was like, oh, goodness, this is different. This is just live action. I mean, we were so used to back then, we were so used to animation, puppets. Anybody seen actors for kids and children on television? Kids love to see children on television, love to see themselves. And the fact that it was a nursery with a nursery teacher, and it's pretty much what they do. They go to nursery and then come home and watch where they've just been. And there was something really special about that as well.
Even though it's raining, it's still a beautiful place to go to work, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, I must say it was hard work. But, I mean, we weren't saving lives or anything. We're still not, with Panto, we're still not saving lives. But, you know, you've got to take it very seriously, and you do your absolute best to make it happen, and to make it the vision that people have of whatever it is. And the same with Balamory, you know, Brian Jameson, who created it, he had it all in his head. He knew exactly what he wanted it to look like. And although we didn't, we had to trust him. We had to kind of just go, right, I'm going to go beside that tree and I'm going to dance. And I'm going to do that for you because you know why I'm doing that. And I would do it again.
In many ways, children's entertainment and Panto are literally hand in hand. And your career in Panto has been incredible. And you've done lots of other theatre as well. Still putting on a frock maybe and hairspray as Edna, but you know, you've done lots of Panto now over the years. How did that progress from that first time as a 16-16-year-old? You
just do it, don't you? You just get on and you just do it. I think when I was 15 and I was in Cinderella and I was in the ensemble and I was watching people playing Dandini or the Ugly Sisters, which was something I was watching closely when I was 15 or 16, because I was like, I want to wear a frock. You know, I want to do that. And I did. I mean, luckily I played Mother Goose in 2008, and that was one of the first, having done Ugly Sister before it, that was one of the first dames that I did, and it was a baptism of fire, as you know. It's like a, you know, it's a mammoth task playing Mother Goose, but it was phenomenal. But then I went in and then I did Smees and Buttons and Wishy and all these, and did that for many, many years, and then getting back into the frock again. But I think it's just from 15-year-old to now, every single thing that you do and every job that you do, you learn something from it, and you can hopefully take that on to the next job. Even with Edna as well, you know, doing a dame or doing Edna, it's, you know, they're very different. Although you're still a man in a dress, there's a different heart to it because you've got a different kind of responsibility. In panto, when you're doing your telly stuff and you're doing Balamory and you're in a studio, and then the next minute you're on a stage and you're seeing the people that watched Balamory. So that was a great thing even with the live shows that I did for Balamory, the CBeebies Live and everything. We were in a studio for a year making so many episodes that we didn't necessarily realise how popular it was getting. And then we took it on tour, and we would see the people that sit in the living room and watch the programme, and you're on stage going, this is phenomenal, because you're then getting their reaction, of course, but you're seeing the faces, you're seeing the fans, and that's just glorious. I still see it now.
I just wonder, as a dame, for instance, because obviously a lot of kids would have come to see panto knowing you from Balamory, and if you were dame, was that a bit of a conflict because they couldn't necessarily recognise you? Interestingly
enough, we did a panto in Balamory. And we did a Cinderella pantomime, and I played one of the ugly sisters on the television. Okay. And the episode was my character trying to get all the other people to come and do a panto, and I was casting them all, and I was kind of directing it. It's like it's kind of imitating art a wee bit in my life at the moment. But so that was kind of PC Plum's kind of role in that episode, in the panto episode, and then I played an ugly sister. So I think a lot of people who watch Balamory have seen me in a dress on television, so when they come and see me in a dress on stage, they know that I've done the dressing up as a woman thing. And also in Willie and Tig, I played a character called Tam in Willie and Tig that I also directed that show as well, which is such a beautiful wee show. And I played a panto dame in that. So there's a kind of...
You just couldn't resist it, could you?
I know, that's... again, it's a Brian Jameson show. He's man's very clever, but but he knows exactly. And he said, I want you to come and do this song about the bunchies. It was about bunchies. The episode's about bunchies, and the panto dame has bunchies. And Tig, who's the little girl, watches the panto dame and goes, "I've got bunchies. I like bunchies." And there was a song, and so it's. But the panto dame dressing and me and the frock and stuff kind of goes a bit hand in hand. And Balamory was so long ago now, so the people that watched Balamory 20 years ago are bringing their kids to the panto to see me in a dress, so they're very used to it.
Did you have a get-together or reunion for the 20th anniversary?
We're all in touch all the time, so we do see each other a lot. When the 20th happened, and there's a few people that we did see, some people that we didn't see, because Rod, who's Spencer, he lives back in America now, so we didn't see him in person, but we did see him on a Zoom thing. And he did a lovely message and everything. And we're all on social media. We're all in contact with. I see his grandkids and stuff now, and I've always got pictures of that. So we're all very much in touch. Julie Nimmo and I are very good friends, and Juliet Cadzo, who's Edie McCready. So Miss Julie Edie McCready and I were very good friends. So we see each other a lot, or whenever we can, because we're all working in different things and soaps, and Julie's got a new wild swimming programme and stuff just now that she's working on. So, we see each other when we can. Miles Jupp he's got his own stand-up. You guys all know Miles Jupp from his panel shows, and he's always turning up in a film somewhere. So when he's on tour with his stand-up, we all get together and go for dinner, and we go and see a show, obviously, and we go for dinner afterwards and have a couple of drinks and reminisce and have a good old laugh. But we always, Kim Sarkezi, she's Newcastle, so we try and, again, we see her on social media, but not in person.
Again, the likeness is there between that and panto, isn't it? Because it was a real family. The whole Balamory thing was a real family, and that's what panto is, whether it be at the local venue or the whole panto community in general. It really is one big family, isn't it?
It really is. I love the panto families every year, and I'm getting to work with a couple of people that I worked with last year in Kilmarnock this year again, so the job's half done when you know the people, because you kind of go in and start rehearsing again, and then you just slot back into where you normally find where you left it off last year. So it's so important. But I love working with new people as well. That's a great thing that I spent a long time, because I was offered to stay in Glasgow and do panto in particular theatres and do long runs in certain theatres, and where that's very good, and I do enjoy doing that. I love going down south and working with a whole load of... You get thrown together, and if your producer who's working knows that these people are all going to get on together, you're going to get, you'll get thrown together, and I get to work with people that I wouldn't necessarily work with in Glasgow. Sue Pollard being somebody that I've worked with loads. I mean, she's panto royalty when it comes to knowing what's going on that stage. And I've learnt so much from Sue. She's just an absolute darling as well, but she's funny. She's got it in her bones,
I was going to say to you as well, you've done panto in England and in Scotland, haven't you?
And Wales.
The panto in England and Wales is very similar, but panto in England and Scotland is not. Scottish panto is very different, isn't it?
It is very different. I think because of the slang and things that we can get away with, you know, the kind of the vernacular, the things that, interestingly enough, when I did panto in Swansea, working with Kev Johns, who's done many pantos in the Grand in Swansea for many years, I noticed that I was Silly Billy and he was the Dame, and I could see that Welsh side of thing was very like Scottish, because he could do the Welsh side of that, which I thought, see, when we do Dame in Scotland, that's what that. So Wales have that. They do have that little turn of phrase and things that they can get away with, and the audiences are hee-hawing and laughing at Kev. You know, Kev's brilliant. So the difference between doing something down here, I've had to clean just enunciation slightly differently, and things are worded maybe slightly differently. But I do remember years ago when it was Terry Morrison was directing, I actually think it was Malvern. I was doing Malvern with Sue Pollard. We were doing Snow White, and I remember going up to him on one of the first days of rehearsals, and I've never felt so stupid in my entire life. And I said, do you mind me changing some of these lines, because it's written in English. And then I heard myself saying it. I thought, I don't mean it's written in English. Of course it's written in English, but I mean it's written for somebody to say gov or somebody in it. And it doesn't sound, if I see it, it's not got my... It's not natural for me to say it like that. Can I swap it around? But I was like, can I change this because it's written in English? It's like, for goodness sakes.
Playing Dame, as we know, is pretty rigorous, very physical, not just the work on stage, but the quick changes, the weight of the costumes, and so on. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
Rewarding, but hard work.
Sure.
On top of that, some dames want to direct as well.
Fools.
How does that work?
Actually, well, last year was the first time that I directed and played Dame, because I've directed for the last 7 years. But doing that, I was always like smear buttons or wishy or something. So you've got one costume, or two costumes at a push, maybe a nightshirt or something. You know, you don't have much to go on. And if it gets to the technical rehearsals, and you don't have to take yourself into the show unless you're the Dame, and then it's slightly problematic. But actually, it was very painless doing last year, because I had decided that I would take myself first. So during the band call and stuff was going on, myself and my dresser got together, and we then teched our changes, so that then when we start the tech from the beginning, I just did the whole show in one dress. Just a basic worker. I did the whole show in that, and I didn't take my changes, so that when I was changing, I could go front and watch lights and do things and spacing and help choreographer with things, and so I could look at stuff like that. And then when it got to the tech dress, I then added in my changes into the thing, where the choreographer was then taking my notes for things, so that I could watch.
I mean, that's the only thing, isn't it? You know, everything else should be pretty straightforward, but during the tech, you need another set of eyes out front, because you can't be in two places. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think that's when the choreographer is worth their absolute salt. You know, because I mean, I've worked with lovely choreographers, but they tend to just look at their dances and their things, and then they go, then scenes happening, and you know, they can do whatever they need to do elsewhere. But from day one, they know that there's going to be a point where they're going to have to step up. So at points, I have them and just fill them in moments and things and ideas, and where special lights need to be, and when cues need to come in, just to make sure that they're just doing a wee bit more. They're just doing a wee bit more than normal, and actually they normally really enjoy it, because there are points when the end of the number finishes and they go, well, I just need to sit here until the next number starts, and that's not always the case. But no, it's great. And during rehearsal, when I'm working directing as well, as I normally block it with me in it, because I think some people do standbys. Some people use like a dancer or an understudy or something and block it. I don't do that. I block it myself with me in it, and then once I've got the shape of it, then I step out and I watch it. And what I do is I tend to point at the space where I'm supposed to be at. And if I move my arm over like that, so I know you can't see me doing it, but I'm moving my arm over to the other space, and then so that the actors on the stage that are looking know where I am, and they can focus over in that direction, and then we'll run it again. Once I've seen it and I'm happy with the shape, I'll go back into it and then run it again. So it seems to work, and because I'm working with some of the guys that I was working with last year, they're kind of used to it.
So what do you love about panto? What keeps you coming back?
I really enjoy the reactions from the kids, and I love fairy tales. I think personally for me, I think it's the fact that I like these stories. I like adventurous stories and things that are slightly camp and things that are funny, and you get away with murder at points as well. And there's a bit of a show-off element as well. I'm not a big show-off, I'm actually quite a shy person. So I think getting in the frock allows me to then create somebody else and blame somebody else as well for things that you're doing. Look, it wasn't me that does that, that's her, that's the mammy that does that. But I think the reaction you get, the festive period, the Christmas period, I love, and I love working. I think if I didn't do panto over Christmas wouldn't be the same, because our Christmas starts in November and it runs to January, and for somebody that really likes Christmas, it's quite nice to have that big long period of time. I'm not really keen on Christmas Day, it's a day off. It's nice to see people, and actually last year I saw family, and this year I'll see family again, but that's great, because I never normally see family over Christmas. I'm normally away and sitting in my digs myself with a wee tree, that like a wee 9-inch tree or whatever, and you're sitting with your microwave dinner. So, I mean, there's no glamour in that side of things, but when you're on stage and you're doing your thing and you get the reaction and the people are cheering and, you can see their big smiley faces, and then they chat to you afterwards saying about how you've made their Christmas and all that. I mean, once you get that, you never want to have it.
Obviously down here we have Christmas, as we all do, and then we'll have New Year. We may have shows on New Year's Eve, but New Year's Day off. Is that different around Hogmanay? Is that almost bigger around panto time than Christmas?
Well, it can be, I think. We start earlier this year, so we actually finish at Hogmanay, so we don't have any shows after into the new year this year, which is lovely, because sometimes you do go back and do maybe 2 extra shows or an extra 3 shows or 4, whatever. So it's quite nice to then get home for Hogmanay, have the New Year celebrations, and know that then you've got a bit of time for yourself. This year as well would be great, because we do have that. We do finish Hogmanay and then it'll be party time. But there's some other pantos in Glasgow that go on to the end of January, and they've got a couple of weeks to go, and that's great, because it means I can go and see my pals, because I can go and see folk that are in Scotland and that are in the Kings in Glasgow, Elaine and Johnny Mack, or I can go and see Liam Dolan in the Pavilion, or I can scoot about and see folk that I normally can't get to see.
Yeah, of course you worked with Liam a few times, didn't you?
I have, unfortunately, yes. It's been quite... No, not at all. And Johnny. No, Liam and I did my first panto in Kilmarnock when I'm this year. We did Mother Goose together, and that's when I met him, 2008, a long time ago. But we've been best pals ever since. We just clicked. We've got a very similar sense of humour. I think that's what it is. We're equally as daft as each other. So that just really kind of works.
What's your favourite panto? Do you have a personal favourite?
Oh my goodness, it changes every time I answer this question. People ask me, and then they're like, that wasn't what you said the last time. I don't know. I mean, I love pantos that have a good story. Sometimes you go and see something, you're like, I'm really struggling to know what's going on this stage. So if it's a Peter Pan, which has a proper, fully fledged, and I'm normally smeeing Peter Pan, so that's lovely, because you get to be part of the story. Dame-wise, although I've not played this Dame, I think my favourite Dame would be Widow Twankey, for the same reason, because you get to do the story, you get to be with Aladdin and do the whole thing. But for the part that I have played and I have been in, Mother Goose definitely was the character that I would play from now until forever, just because being the protagonist and the Dame is just a gift, because you're carrying the story and you're doing the comedy, and you've got 12 costumes I think I had when I did it. And as you said before, that costume, the choreography off stage is as important as the one on stage. You go off and it's like you strip down and you're straight back on. There's something special about hearing that audience as soon as you walk on in that elaborate next costume that they go, how on earth did he get from that to that within that time? There was only a verse of a song. That's class when that happens.
I mean, there are many times, I'm sure, where you thought, I don't know why I have a dressing room, I never go back there.
Oh, absolutely not. I know, and the dressing room is normally like quite a nice big dressing room, and it's got all there's no room for me in it by the time all the costumes go in it, because they tend to store the causes, but then you've got the changing area that you spend a lot of time in. But no, intervals you go back in, and by that point all the costumes are not there.
And the funny ththing about Mother Goose is, and I don't know whether it's because it's a lesser known story, compared to others, it's seldom staged, is it? That
is it, and I get it's the morality, it's the vanity side of it, isn't it? And I think a lot of things nowadays with the moral of a story, because it's not really necessarily something that kids think about. They don't think about vanity or, like selling your soul or selling the goose for your youth, the fountain of youth going into this thing. I mean, kids, I don't necessarily maybe nowadays understand what that is, because they are youthful. But it's for parents, I think it's such a great story, because if you asked any of the audience members on the way out, would you sell your goose to be young again, they probably would say, half of them would probably say no thank you very much, but some people would probably go,
exactly. It wouldn't be a fountain of youth now, it'd be Botox and an uplift, wouldn't it?
It's so easy to come by now. You don't need
absolutely.
a goose anymore.
You don't need to sell the goose now. And finally then, Jack and the Beanstalk, I mean, Dame Trotter's a fabulous role.
Yeah, fabulous.
It's a real adventure as well, isn't it?
Yeah, again, and it's a story one again for the mum, because she gets the beans back, and then it's that decision of, no, this isn't good enough, it should have been, and then the throne, and then the beanstalk grows. So there's nice moments in there for the family, that family unit, that you like the story to then go on, and then the adventure to go and rescue Jill, which is lovely, and defeat the giant. So yeah, it's great, and it's going to be funny in Kilmarnock. It's a brilliant script so far. We're on draft 1 of it, or draft 1 and 1.5 of it at the moment. It's looking really good, and there's a lot of new things for people in Kilmarnock this year, because we're used to the kind of routines and certain things that we do, but there's a few extra wee things this year that I was like, oh, that's a wee bit new, that's a bit different. So I think the people that come and see it, adults in particular, will enjoy some of the new routines that are coming in. But the singing and the dancing and the costumes and the stupidity, and Gary Morrison's there as well, if talking about stupidity, he's there again this year. So there'll be certainly the laughs for the kids. So I think it's got a bit of everything.
Well, listen, it's absolutely fabulous to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you over the last decade or so. Have a fabulous run in Kilmarnock this Christmas. Andrew Agnew, thank you for talking to us.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for another episode, I'm afraid. As I said earlier, there are many more fabulous guests still to come, so please subscribe through your favourite podcast app. And remember, if you have any questions about Imagine Theatre or anything to do with pantomime in general, send it to us via the Get in Touch section of the website at imaginetheatre.co.uk. And of course, make sure you join me, Martin Ballard, next time for episode 64, when we'll be looking at some of pantomime's traditional and new routines, set pieces and timeless elements, from slosh and the ghost gag to song sheets and front cloth favourites.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.